Thank you, Honourable Member. Do we have a seconder? Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the movement of the resolution. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, I begin first and foremost by thanking God for his mercies. Because this country has not experienced a Category 3 hurricane or 4 for over 80-some years. And when we see the damage and devastation that has taken place, not only in the Bahamas, but in Haiti and other countries, the reality is we have to thank God that there's been no loss of life in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, like I said, Nassau has never taken a beating like this. Sorry, but I apologize. New Providence is what I should have said. Yeah. New Providence has not taken a beating like this for over 80 years. I want to say one thing. He can't say it himself. But the Right Honorable Member in this chamber has done a phenomenal job in leading the government in this hurricane restoration effort and leading the charge, Mr. Speaker. I think everyone should read yesterday's Tribune editorial. I'm not accustomed to them saying kind things about the Right Honorable Member, but I think it's an accurate assessment of the leadership that he has displayed, Mr. Speaker, in the country's time of need. I have had occasion, Mr. Speaker, to accompany him as he went through several communities in New Providence. And you sense his compassion, you sense his understanding, but what was so intriguing to me is that you see the people's spirit almost lift to have the nation's leader visit with them in their homes, to hear the tale of their story, and to indicate to them that notwithstanding what has happened, we will rebuild and we will restore. That's very important, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, climate change is real. A few weeks ago, nations of the world have now made commitments for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and the thresholds have been met to ensure that the Paris Agreement comes into force on the 4th of November, next month. But as the Prime Minister indicated, Mr. Speaker, these weather systems that impact our region and our country will only get more intense as years go by. Coastlines will continue to be impacted. Mr. Speaker, in my constituency of Southern Shores, the seawalls that did exist were ripped apart. Bonefish Pond rose 4 to 5 feet. And so when the surge came over the southern coast, the sea met the pond and engulfed all the homes of Marshall Road and Misty Gardens, flooded farmlands and homes throughout Cowpen Road. Those homes have been built in wetlands. wetlands that would ordinarily provide a buffer when such hurricanes arise. But, Mr. Speaker, I really want to signal the fact that we had not had an opportunity to celebrate National Heroes Day because we were in the midst of dealing with Matthew. But there was some heroism displayed during this hurricane right in my constituency, and I want to single out a few of the persons, Mr. Speaker, because notwithstanding all the notices and notifications that we gave our people to evacuate certain zones that we thought would be prone to flooding, many people did not heed the call, and they stayed. And in Misty Gardens, Mr. Speaker, there were 3 gentlemen, Jason Sands, Mr. Lightbourne, and Neely. And the 3 of them were responsible for evacuating well over 20 persons, including young babies and infants, during the hurricane. Mr. Speaker, it was a time when the community came together. The Mackeys opened up their 2-story home to accommodate families during the storm. As the Prime Minister indicated, Karen Thompson and a wonderful son, Carrington, who, notwithstanding the fact that he suffers from stage 4 cancer, was out there with the raft, rescuing Pastor Major and his family and bringing them into their home during the storm. Michelle Pickstock opened up a house to accommodate others. And there are countless stories, Mr. Speaker, of neighbors helping each other during this time. And I really want to thank each and every one of them for their efforts. Mr. Speaker, on Marshall Road, some of my people are still suffering beyond light. The water is still a foot high on certain roads. But I want to say to the residents in Marshall Road and Misty Gardens that BPL has indicated that they are ready to electrify us and bring back power. But as I've indicated to each and every one of you, because most of the homes have experienced at least 4 to 5 feet of water in them, we have to ensure that each home is properly repaired by a certified electrician to ensure that it is safe for power to be placed into those communities once again. Ministry of Works, NEMA, and BPL have already been in there to do the preliminary assessment, and each home has to be looked at by an electrician. And so I will be in the area later on this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, to focus on that, because as the Prime Minister indicated, people look at Marshall Road and Misty Gardens and they say that these are people of means. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, those people, some of those people were hurting before Hurricane Matthew. And now they've lost everything. In Misty Gardens, 4 out of every 5 homes lost all their vehicles. Every car gone. All the furniture gone. They lost everything, Mr. Speaker. But as a community and as a country, we have to rebuild, Mr. Speaker. And we will get through this. It's not going to happen overnight. But I'm happy that the government has seen fit to bring this resolution, because we have the resolve to do it, and by this resolution we will now have the resources to be able to begin the work of restoring our people's lives. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that this is not the time for politics. This is the time for the country to come together. Last night I was fussed out because I was told that there was someone who apparently is a supporter of the other side who was helping in the cleanup and the restoration process. That's fine, I could take the cussing. But this is a time where anybody who is able and has resources has to pitch in to help and restore our island. We don't have time for petty politics at this time. This is about rebuilding a country, Mr. Speaker, and bringing some sense of normalcy to the lives of our people. And so, Mr. Speaker, I also want to indicate to those who are out there dumping illegally to please discontinue doing so. The government has waived tipping fees, which means it's free to take it to the landfill. There is no cost involved. So please direct your waste where it ought to go. Additional chemicals have been purchased so that fogging can be ramped up on the island of New Providence, as well as our other islands, including Grand Bahama, Andros. And we know that we have received some complaints in Long Island and in Agua. I know that chemicals are on the way to Long Island to assist in the fogging there. But all of the agencies of government are working tirelessly, Mr. Speaker, to try to restore our people's lives. I also want to indicate to the general public that by the end of this week we will announce a new location. We've already filled up 2 4-acre parcels of the green waste that we have been removing from our streets. We are going to have a larger area dedicated for green waste only to go, Mr. Speaker, because we're taking all of the green waste and we'll be composting some and mulching the rest so that we can use what we now remove from our streets for the rebeautification of our islands at the end of this process. And so, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of people who have light now, but there are a lot of people who don't. And I think that we as political leaders need to have them appreciate, even as difficult as it is, that slowly but surely we hope to have all power restored on our island. And so I want to thank NEMA, I want to thank all the donors, the persons who have been providing ice to the various communities, for those in the community of Southern Shores who have cooked meals, provided all sorts of things for people who are in need. And, Mr. Speaker, I end in seconding this motion by simply, this resolution, by simply saying, we have to rebuild. We will restore our lives and the lives of those who are hurting. And one day we will look on this, Mr. Speaker, I hope, with a view of saying that at this time we saw all of the people of this nation come together as one, with a view to helping each other. And with those few words, Mr. Speaker, I second the movement.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas Article 129(1) of the Constitution requires the Minister of Finance, before the end of each financial year, to cause to be prepared annual estimates of revenue and expenditure for public services during the succeeding financial year, which shall be laid before the House of Assembly, and which estimates have been laid before the House of Assembly. And whereas Hurricane Joaquin in October 2015 and created significant damage to the infrastructure and personal property of residents of Acklands, Crooked Island, Long Key, Mayaguana, Inagua, Long Island, and San Salvador. And whereas Hurricane Matthew in October 2016 also created significant damage to the infrastructure and personal property of North and Central Andros, Berry Islands, New Providence, and Grand Bahama. Now therefore be it resolved that this House authorizes the Minister of Finance to raise by way of loan or loans a sum not exceeding $150 million, B dollars, in aggregate in the currency of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And secondly, approves the proceeds of the said loans being used for the purposes of defraying expenditure for recovery and reconstruction efforts as a result of Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Joaquin. As many.